Still on the search of that one true love? On the limbo in this crazy world of dating, marriage, relationships? Well, listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Relationship Podcast, your one-stop podcast for everything about relationships.
Thank you for tuning into the GSMC Relationship Podcast brought you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Gloriann. Welcome. In today's episode, I'll be talking about co-parenting with your ex and how co-parenting can have a positive outcome for your child. I'll be talking a little bit about the studies that they have made and the effects on co-parenting. Then, I'll be talking about the pros and cons and the challenges that it is to have shared custody with your child, and tips on how to make co-parenting work for the future of your child's relationship. Then I'll change it up and I'll be talking about how work can affect your relationship. We can all say that in a perfect world, we wouldn't have problems and that everybody can get along. But the reality is that we all have different opinions, characters, and lifestyle. Bringing a human being into this world can be new, exciting, and scary. Having kids is always thinking about their future and what's best for them. If it didn't work out with your partner and you're going through a separation or a divorce, you know that it not only affects you or your partner, it affects your kids as well. You as a parent need to think about the long term. Either if you're with your partner, divorced or separated, and have a child together, it can be a challenge. If you're divorced or broken up, you are going to find yourself having a custody battle with your partner. Many parents are trying to do the co-parenting arrangement once they get divorced or separated because it has a better outcome for their kids. You may ask yourself, what is co-parenting? What are you talking about? Okay, so co-parenting, it's an arrangement that parents have where the both of them continue to raise their child and participate in activities and interactions between the parents in private, just like in public. If you are thinking about co-parenting with your ex, you need to think about the pros and the cons about it. Co-parenting is not easy. You and your ex-partner need to make a plan for being in the same page and making the correct decisions for your child. A decision that you both feel that is the best thing for your kid, and try to have less conflict. Because let's be honest, divorce, it is stressful enough. And obviously you need to create an environment where you don't have that much stress and conflict between them. To make things clear, co-parenting is not for everybody. Your emotions can get in the way and it makes it hard. Just like if you have an abusive partner, obviously co-parenting is not the way to go because you need to think about your kids' best. Co-parenting is about thinking about your children's best interest. Obviously, as a parent, you need to think about your child's future and their benefits. You can be selfish when it comes to co-parenting or thinking like, oh, I'm gonna have revenge on my partner or my ex-partner, if they didn't agree with you in something. It's more about benefiting your kid. Does not have to do anything with you or your partner. In recent years, we have seen a lot of parents trying to make the co-parenting method work. Some celebrities that I can think about is Kourtney Kardashian with Scott Disick, Gwyneth Paltrow with Chris Martin, Khloe Kardashian with Tristan Thompson. There's a lot of people and a lot of celebrities that have been using this method or like this agreement. Co-parenting is putting your children's needs first, and that's that's the most important thing about co-parenting, putting them first and them feeling like they are important and they are loved. The effects in co-parenting is that the kid wants to feel that they have their both parents' support and love. And obviously with co-parenting in the long haul, like in the long term, this can create a positive experience because they see that their parents respect each other and the kid can have a better bond with his or her parents. This helps to develop a healthy relationship within their lives, especially when they don't feel rejected by none of their parents, nor feel that they are the blame for their parents' separation, because obviously once you are a child of divorce, you feel like it's your fault. And you have to make that really clear for your children as well, especially when it helps them to be more social and communicate better with you and your ex-partner, just like in their future relationships. And it helps them as well to be better in school and not carry resentment towards nobody. A study conducted by the psychologist Robert Buzeman of the Department of Health and Mental Hygiene in Baltimore, Maryland, showed that the children that had parents that did the co-parenting method had a less behavior and emotional problems, had a better relationship with people, and even high self-esteem. Obviously, with the high self-esteem, they did better in school than children that had parents that just had a sole custody agreement. Both parents just need to spend the equal amount of time with their children. The study shows that many parents don't have a lot of conflict because of both parents spend the equal amount of time with their children. Co-parenting is not for everybody. If your separation or divorce was a tense one, co-parenting is not going to work. It's not going to work for you, especially if your ex-partner is an alcoholic, drug user, or even an abuser. It's not the best option for you nor your child. Another thing to think about is if your ex-partner has a serious mental issue or a health problem, your kid may be in a dangerous environment and that can cause them a lot of pain and emotional damage. Another reason on why co-parenting wouldn't work, it is if your partner neglects the child and even abandons them. And if they move a lot, then that doesn't give stability to the kid. If you're still having anger and resentment towards your ex, co-parenting is going to be impossible. In co-parenting, you can't really insult or say negative comments in front of your kids because you're poisoning the child. Obviously, sometimes it's really difficult for parents to not say your father or mother is not good enough, or he or she doesn't help around, he or she is lazy, or your father is always breaking agreements with us, or your parent or your mom and dad is always not truthful. It's this types of comments that stays in your kid's head that obviously that you need to avoid. You can really say those type of comments because you're poisoning them, just like you can ruin their relationship with their father or mother. You need to be really careful what you say in front of your kid. Children see their parents as their role model, and you need to think about what's best for them. And if you really can't have a healthy relationship with your ex-partner, do not even co-parent. Don't even think about it. But if you do want a healthy relationship with your ex and you want what's best for your kid, and then you decide to co-parent, you need to know that it's going to be a challenge, especially seeing your ex in activities and in your house. The feeling that you have towards your ex, you need to just put them aside for your children's best interest. It's by parenting that your child will grow and succeed and be capable of becoming a good person and having a good relationship with the both of you and your partner. Up next, I'll be talking about the pros and cons of co-parenting.
The GSMC Sex Podcast is a show that examines all aspects of sexuality, from physical to emotional to spiritual. Join our hosts as they discuss age-old questions, common misconceptions, and the latest topics surrounding sex. They'll tackle topics about sexuality from the complicated to the hilarious and everything in between. GSMC Sex Podcast is your show for all of your questions about sex, even some you might not have thought of yet. Download the GSMC Sex Podcast Podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you can find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
Welcome back. As we were talking about the studies and effects of co-parenting, we are now going to be talking about the pros and cons of it. Co-parenting after a divorce or separation is hard because you still have feelings for this person. It doesn't matter if it's anger, love, or resentment. You need to put them aside for your children's sake. Let's be honest, if you do have a kid with your ex-partner, they're going to be there for the rest of your life. So if you can't really do the co-parenting, you'll need to do the parallel parenting. Parallel parenting is an agreement. It's an agreement that when you can't agree on how to raise your child in a healthy environment because of the anger or resentment is too much and you guys can't communicate nor see each other in the same room, then parallel agreement is the one for you. Obviously, the parallel agreement can be temporary or not. And maybe it's the best result for the kid to have a stable relationship with both parents. Meanwhile, co-parenting has been connected for a better result for your children's behavior, emotions, and mental health. That's even one of the pros for co-parenting, to be honest. For a successful co-parenting, you need to have an open communication with your ex-partner. You have to have patience and you have to have empathy. It may be difficult because if your relationship didn't work, you need to be really sure that it will with the co-parenting agreement. Because you guys need to think about your kid. Co-parenting requires to set some boundaries between you two and create a plan that will benefit everybody involved. Obviously, the people involved at the beginning of the co-parenting is obviously going to be your children, you and your ex-partner. Meanwhile, time passes, you guys will start dating, and obviously your partner at that moment needs to be involved as well as the co-parenting because they need to understand the rules that you and your ex-partner have created to make the relationship work, and it's more to benefit their kid. It's not to benefit you at all. Okay, so one of the pros for co-parenting is stability and making rules for each household so the kid knows that their parents are in the same book, and this creates a more stable environment for the child. Try to be consistent with everything so your child doesn't start to think he can get away with everything. Another important thing that co-parenting helps for is so the child doesn't feel guilty about their parents' emotion. Obviously, when you go through a divorce, let's say like this, if you're a child of divorce, I'm pretty sure at one point you thought, oh, it's my fault that my parents are getting divorced. You always see them fighting, especially if you did something. Obviously, with co-parenting, the child doesn't feel guilty because obviously he sees that both of his parents are respecting each other, plus they're not talking bad in front of the kid. That's another thing that you need to understand if you want to do the co-parenting thing. You need to respect each other, and you have to respect the relationship that your children has with their father or their mother. You can't really be talking bad about them because it ruins their relationship. Other things that you need to consider is that you need to keep things professional between you and your ex. Remind them about the lines that they cannot cross, and something else that you need to agree on is how to discipline your child, what education they're going to have, and even what kind of health care. Co-parenting really reduces the stress of co-parenting alone and not feeling overwhelmed. To every positive, there's a negative. Now we're going to be talking a little bit about the cons that you may have in co-parenting. These are the things that may happen, And the first one is, if you can really put your differences aside to create less conflict, then you have a problem. Because obviously your child loves you and your ex, and you can't really make them choose because it's going to cause them stress and anxiety. Secondly, co-parenting can really limit your options, because if you want to go to work in another place, or if you're wanting to move because you need a change of scenario, or you really can't do it, this can create a dispute between the parents, because if you want to make a major life decision, unfortunately you can traumatize your kid. I know it sounds harsh, but it is what it is. Third, it requires extra work, making a plan and sticking to it. Having a good communication is key. We've talked about this. And that can be challenging, because if you didn't have a good communication with your ex, the odds of co-parenting succeeding are extremely low. As I've said, for co-parenting, you need to set your feelings aside, or at least learn how to control them. And again, have in mind that this agreement doesn't work for everybody. Another negative thing is that you or your partner can sabotage your child's relationship without really even noticing, which is not fair for them, and they can even resent you for it. Another thing is, don't make your child choose sides, because it can bring them, as I said, stress and anxiety. It is really difficult for them, obviously, because they don't want the other parent to feel bad. One thing, if you want to make co-parenting work, you can't hide information from your ex-partner. Try to create a joint calendar so your ex know what events are going on. And obviously, if your ex-partner is an abuser, an alcoholic, a drug user, co-parenting is off the table. But obviously, you need to try to help your child understand the situation and why their other parent is not really there, and why is the best thing for their health and mental state. A lot of children go to therapy once their parents are getting a divorce, because it's more to understand their feelings and how to talk about their feelings, how to communicate better. I know that it can be a challenge, because co-parenting requires a lot of cooperation and letting go of that anger and putting your feelings from the past aside. Also, it requires a lot of communication and negotiation. All of this is for your child's best interest. You really have to, if you really want to make this work, you and your partner need to sit down, and even if you need a support system, even if you need somebody to talk to make this work, because both of you do want the best for your child, you then need to communicate it and express yourself the way that you need to express yourself. I know it's difficult to create a healthy environment, especially when you're doing all the work and the other person is just going along with it. Obviously, you both need to put the effort in it and just say, hey, this is for them, or say, hey, this is for a kid. We really need to get our things together, because unfortunately, we really can't traumatize this kid at the end of the day, because our issues are gonna affect him in the future. And I don't think that we want that. We want a healthy, good kid that will be there and communicate with us when he has a problem. We need to really have a healthy environment. When we come back, I'll be giving you tips to create a healthy environment for co-parenting and making it work.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Welcome back. I've been talking about how co-parenting with your ex can have a positive impact in your children's life, the studies that they have made, and the pros and cons of doing co-parenting. Now, I'll be giving you tips on how to have a successful agreement. You and your ex-partner have decided to take the chance on co-parenting, but still need to work on some things. The first thing you need to do is to heal from your relationship. And in a divorce or separation, there's always someone that gets hurt. So working with that person that hurt you can be difficult. If you need to take time and space, you can do it. Go talk to someone or get a therapist so you can work in those feelings and have a healthy relationship with your ex, even though they hurt you. Another tip is to have a routine for your child. When you get separated or divorced, the routine of your kid changes completely. It's important to create a new routine so your child doesn't feel overwhelmed or confused with whom he'll be spending time with. Once you create a routine, you'll have to be flexible as well. Because, let's say, I'll give you an example. Your ex has an event, a wedding or a birthday party, a family event, a family reunion, something like that. But it's your day or your weekend with your child. Obviously, you can always change that weekend for another if you don't have an important event as well. As I said before, keep the doors of communication wide open. It's not to have a friendship with this person that you're texting them or calling them every minute of the day. Again, you guys are not in a relationship anymore. You don't have to do that. It's more about not ignoring their calls or text messages, because you never know if something happens to your child or something happens to them that you need to take care of your child. That's why you need to set boundaries as well. Setting boundaries can help a lot because you're keeping in touch because of your children. But once you both start dating, you'll need to talk about when is the right time for this new person, to meet your child. And obviously, to be honest with your ex-partner once you start dating, and make it clear since the beginning to your new partner that you are co-parenting with your ex, and it's just that. It's for your kid's best interest. That there's nothing going on with your ex, just in case if she gets jealous of this communication. A separation or a divorce can be hard on everybody, but one thing that you need to understand is that you can be guilt by your child. Sometimes kids take advantage of the situation and play the guilty card, so you feel bad. You and your ex need to be clear on who's the parent and not be taken advantage by your child because you feel bad for them or because you're making them suffer this way. Of course, you need to listen to your kid and take their feelings important, and make them feel important just like their feelings are heard. But you have to make it clear that at the end of the day, you and your ex-partner are the ones that are going to make the decisions. Another important thing that you should do is find a good supporting system, because having one can impact your life in a positive way. This can be people that motivate you and support you, like your friends or family members. And if you feel that your family members or friends are not really understanding you, there's a lot of support groups that can help you go through it because change can be extremely hard. And you need someone that can understand you and give you tips. I've talked about this before. Try to find a therapist. There are professionals that can help you heal, and they can give you the right tools to express yourself better and control your emotions with your ex. Going through therapy doesn't mean that you have a problem or that you're crazy. It's to just help you have a healthier relationship with yourself and understanding things. I'm giving you these tips because I know how hard it is to make a decision and sticking to it. I have this friend that she's doing the co-parenting with her ex-partner. They have one kid together, and obviously at the beginning it was hard for her. She tells me that obviously they need to put their differences aside, and there's a lot of the times that when they have a discussion or something happens, past discussions come back, or like emotions come back, and it's hard because obviously you can't really control your emotions. But when she decided to do co-parenting with her ex-partner, she had to put in her head, okay, our love relationship didn't work, but our friendship has to work for for our children's sake. They had the conversation, they both decided that that they can make co-parenting work because they did get along. It was just that in the relationship, they did get along when they were friends, but obviously once they turn it into a relationship, into a love relationship, it wasn't really the best thing for them. When they were together in the relationship, it was more damage it was more fighting than good times. So obviously they start to make the co-parenting decisions. It was hard for them at first because, again, you had a relationship with this person and jealousy comes to the picture, or you still think that, you get mad if they don't do something. So obviously it was just hard for them in the beginning. Right now, when you see them, they made a really big progress because they even go out together as a family to go eat. She goes out, like it's her, him, and the kid. They go out to eat. They do things as a family, but it's more for her child than for themselves. Obviously, they do spend a good time together. Obviously they have a good time together and they made it work. But here and there, there's always some discussion or there's something happening that obviously brings past emotions, but they've been trying to control them, especially her. And for her, if you ask her like, what's your experience with co-parenting, she says that it does work. It's that you need to just put your time and effort into it. Obviously, she says it like that. And she said, if you're going to do the co-parenting thing, you need to put your 120% because this is for your kids' best interest. If you are going through a divorce or a separation at this time and have kids, I hope that this podcast helped you a little bit in understanding what co-parenting is and what are the effects on having this type of agreement. Just to be clear, this is not for everybody. And if you need to look for outside help, that's fine. You just need to be clear in what you think it's best for your child and keep their best interest in mind, especially if you don't want them to go through what you went through in a divorce or separation. Up next, I'll be talking about how work affects your relationship.
Are you tired of the same old news? Are you sick of the seemingly endless political spin and negativity? The GSMC America's Still Beautiful podcast is a weekly news podcast covering all the top positive and uplifting news stories. We cover stories that will inspire, uplift, and remind you of the good in the world. Tune into the Golden State Media Concepts America's Still Beautiful podcast to get all the great and positive news stories of today. Download the GSMC America's Still Beautiful podcast on iTunes iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
The final thing that I'm going to say in the topic about co-parenting that I forgot to say is to acknowledge how difficult it is for your kid and your partner, and more important, to have quality time with your kid. It is going to be difficult for you as well. You're getting used to a new normal, and being lonely in the house when your child is in your ex's house, and you need to find yourself some hobbies. This is a learning experience for you, your ex, and your child. Always be polite and willing to help and not going to your old ways. Anyway, to finally change the topic, I'm going to be talking about how work affects your relationship. In the 21st century, we all know that it's expensive to be living by yourself. And obviously, you'll need somebody else to pay your bills and your mortgage. And obviously, if you have a partner, that's great. At the beginning, you and your partner can understand the struggles that you're going through. And obviously, your partner understands that you guys need to make money to have a better future together. But at one point, they'll start to feel like you guys don't spend a lot of time together because you're always working and they're always working and you guys really don't see each other as much as often. And it can be stressful and sometimes difficult to balance work and relationship. That's why you guys have to have really good communication, because depending on the job that you guys have, you can either have a lot of stress and not even have time at all, or you can not be really that stressed and really have all the time in the world. You need to learn how to detach yourself from what is work and what is your personal life. You need to learn how to balance it. And if you don't balance it the right way, it can bring you a lot of problems, especially when you're in a relationship. One of the first problems that you're gonna start having is that you're gonna start neglecting your relationship and your partner. You can start having discussions, and that can add even more stress to the situation. A lot of people are workaholics, and this can ruin their relationship as well, because they're giving their 100% at work, and once they get home, they're tired and they really don't give the percentage that they're supposed to, and they don't give the time to their families and partners. This can cause a lot of problems in the relationship because your partner can start feeling neglected. And once your partner starts feeling that you're neglecting them, insecurities start to show up and become even more stressful because your partner starts to distance themselves, and communication can be harder between the both of you. Or they start asking for a change and they start to act like they need more and more attention, like they start to become needy. That's why it's important to have control of your job and to have a balance in your life. And obviously, to communicate with your partner, they need to understand that you're working hard for them and for your future together. It can be a challenge because it's harder to bond with them. Something that you can do is ask their opinion in specific issues so they feel that their opinion is important to you. Something, like an example of it is something that happened at work and you don't know how to react, or you don't know what to do. So you can ask for their opinion, and that can even be a little bit of bonding time between the two of you, because first of all, your partner can be listening to your problem or your issue, and they can give you an opinion, and then they feel that you made them important. You have to make time for your partner. Quality time, it is important, just like intimacy time as well. When you are on your way home, try to leave your work at work, and obviously don't try to Don't try to answer emails, text, or call. And you can give your partner or your family the attention that they need. Obviously, in some professions, you can't really do that. Like, if you're a doctor, you need to have your phone on your hand in case of emergency. But obviously, that's a whole different story. If you're having trouble controlling your stress and balancing your life, take a time off and talk to someone that can help you. Even be honest with your partner about it. That's why they're there for you, to help you. If you work from 8 to 6 p.m., try then to go to the gym in the morning time with your partner so you guys have a hobby together, or any kind of hobby. It doesn't really have to be going to the gym together. I have a family member that she worked all the time. And obviously her working all the time, she really didn't notice all the damage that she was causing her partner and her child. When she retired, she then starts to notice the separation and the distance that she has with her partner and her kid. There's a lot of resentment as well, because they feel she picked work first instead of being with them. She was a manager in a big bank, and she worked a lot because she just wanted to try to give her child the best future that she can give him. But obviously, her missing out in a lot of the special things with her kid, he has a lot of resentment towards her. Now that she's retired, she's trying to make up for lost time, and she is really trying to be there. She's not a bad person. She just thought that at that time, at that moment, it was the best thing for her. Especially, she was just thinking about her family's future. Now that she started to notice all of how her husband resents her as well, they're separated, and obviously she's trying to make up for lost time with her child, and she's going to therapy and she's getting a lot of help, and even she's going to family counseling, like obviously just her and her kid, so they can work those issues together. That's why you need to be really careful to give all the time in the world to your work, because once you have a family, other people get affected. You may think at the time, oh, but this is for them, this is for their future. But unfortunately, the way that the human brain works, they feel like you're neglecting them. They feel that you're not really spending time with them. And money isn't everything. It's better to have your quality time with your family and with your friends than worrying about your job 24/7. I understand that now in this time and moment that we're living in, it's difficult, but always take time for yourself and for your family, because at the end of the day, once you retired, or once I know it's gonna sound really harsh, but when you passed away, your job is gonna replace you. So you really need to start thinking about your health and the health of your family, because obviously you don't want this to happen to you, that you don't want your family to resent you, and at one point you're going to notice and you're going to say to yourself, okay, how do I fix this? Or, okay, it's too late for this. How can I resolve this now? Maybe in another podcast, I'll go more into detail of how work affects you in your relationship. But for now, that's all I can say. I hope that today's episode made you think about the decisions in your life and the ones that you are going to make as well. Stay safe, guys. Thank you for listening to the GSMC Relationship Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I would like to ask that you please remember to subscribe to the show and write a nice review. That really helps us. And if you can please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, thank you.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Relationship Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies games to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.